Hello, everyone. I feel like that was very low. Hello, everyone. All right, making sure everyone can hear me. Sorry if you had the tab minimized. Shouldn't have done that. Should have been watching the ad. Forgot to do a little thing on YouTube today. My crusade against YouTube continues. So real quick. I was gonna say watch on YouTube. No, don't watch on YouTube, watch on Twitch. Alright, there we have it. Okay, not that Twitch is a good platform, but it's a slightly better platform. Again, YouTube is just turning off my monetization. I have to manually turn it on every time, and if I forget, I just don't make any money. And you know how it is. We love doing shit for free, don't we? None of us have bills to pay or any shit like that, so it's not a problem. Am I generating enough shareholder value for you, YouTube? Am I doing that? Am I doing enough shareholder value for you? I hope I am. And if I'm not, please tell me how I can. I would love to contribute. Okay. Today I'm going to be generating shareholder value for, first off, the paracetamol that I just took, because I have a headache, so I hope I can make it through this. But this is kind of a very regular occurrence, thanks to sinuses being a thing. And second, Lisp. The Lisp Corporation doesn't exist, but we're going to create it. We're going to create the Lisp Corporation. So today I want to do a little bit more. Whoops, didn't mean to delete that. I meant to select it. Today, no, we're not doing this actually. So we're doing this. We're doing a new build system in Lisp. I am a little bit conflicted about this for a variety of reasons. But I guess I still want to do it. Worst case scenario, I have a perfectly functioning build system that I did in C. I'm already very used to doing stuff that way. If I don't like this thing that I built today, I just don't have to use it. This is different from when I built that build system. Whereas before I was using makefiles, and I absolutely hate makefiles. Now I have one that I like, but the code for it is a header-only, very messy library, but whatever. And also requires compilation, which is not great. Whereas Lisp, as a kind of interpreted, not kind of interpreted, it is very much an interpreted language, does not require compilation. And as such, I can just put a script, run it, and that should give me the build. Of course, the script would still require a little bit of a, the whole system around it. So you probably still would need the dependency on the build script itself. I guess. Besides also needing a common Lisp REPL, such as the, what was it called? Yeah, I remember it's SBCL because I used to call it the sabbatical, and I did not mute my computer. The SBCL, that is what I used to run Lisp. That's really all you need, but it is kind of a, standard, very well-known program. And most importantly, I don't have to provide builds for it. Whereas, to use my current build system, you need maybe you need my programming language, or at the very least you need GCC. You need to compile it, and then you can build your program. So I never liked that part. I do like the part that I was using my own programming language for it. now the use cases for that programming language will go from 1 to 0. So that's not great. But, well. Anyway, we're growing them KPIs indeed. Have I tried Haskell? I have not tried Haskell. It's literally the only programming language older than Lisp, I believe. No, that's Fortran. That's Fortran. Never mind. Haskell. Code examples. Low-key kinda ugly. I'm not gonna lie to you. Not gonna mince my words. This is not very beautiful. Haskell is math if math was code. Okay, but for example, yesterday I was reading about okay. I was reading about regular expressions, right? And the thing about regular expressions on Wikipedia is that they tell you how a parser for them is built with Thompson's construction algorithm. And then they explain the algorithm. And it works recursively by splitting an expression into its constituent sub-expressions, then calculating an NFA using the set of rules. Okay, so far so good. But then it gives you the more precisely, from a regular expression E, the obtained automaton A with the transition function delta respects the following properties, which is a very mathematical way of speaking. Maybe I was wrong when I said nobody speaks this way in programming. Okay, maybe Haskell programmers talk like this. I don't fucking know. But we don't do this. We don't do this shit. Give me some pseudocode. So I'm not a big fan of mathematics, to be honest. What can I say? Could that be because of how many teachers in my and a lot of other people's education scared us about how difficult mathematics is, when in reality they were just low-key kind of shitty teachers? Could be. Because when they were nice, I somehow really enjoyed math, but then I always ran into some bastard fucking professors. And they just killed any interest I had in math. Yeah, Wikipedia, yeah, is not necessarily the most straightforward explanation for things, but this one is very mathematical. It's like, suppose we have a regular expression E, the obtained automaton A, with the transition function delta respects the following properties. Who describes an algorithm this way? That's not very common. Nobody really does that. Like, for example, look at the, what is it called? The cryptography key exchange, is it? The Wikipedia page for key exchange. The Diffie-Hellman one. This one. Look at how well explained this is. This is also Wikipedia. Look at how incredibly well explained this is. You need to kind of understand the algorithms, and you need to ignore the fact that my face is being just like fried by the white on the screen right now. Should I maybe lower my brightness a little bit? No, not switch my input. I'm just gonna settings, brightness, and lower that. That's slightly better, and it's not much different for me looking at the screen. Alice and Bob agree on public parameters, right? They agree on these two numbers. They both know these numbers. Then Alice takes her secret key, which only she has, with the public parameters and sends the resulting public key to Bob. Bob does the same thing. Then Alice combines Bob's key with her secret key, and Bob does the same with his, and now they both have a shared secret. Now you need to understand the math going on here, which is just like 5 to the power of 4, where 5 is the parameter here, 4 is Alice's private key, and then modulo 23, which is the other parameter here. And of course, understand that in a real implementation of this thing, you're going to be working with gigantic integers, to the point that we use a special class called big int But isn't it so clear how this algorithm works? Can't you conceptually understand how well this works? Compare that to this. To what we were just looking at. No, this is not it. This. You're telling me about the properties that the algorithm follows. Nobody talks like that. Nobody talks like that when it comes to... No. Wikipedia honestly gives you a pretty good overview of a lot of algorithms, but sometimes you encounter bullshit like this, and it's annoying as shit. Because what do you mean the following properties for the automaton A and the regular expression E? Also, the explanation, like the example that they use, this one, this is a regular expression that they use to explain the algorithm, and it's absolutely ridiculous because it's literally just using two types of characters, 0 and 1. It's like, regular expressions are already difficult to understand. This is so much worse. What is this? What the hell are you doing with this? Absolutely ridiculous. So maybe whoever worked on the regular expression articles of Wikipedia just like was having a bad day and made it everyone's problem. I don't know. Just absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, I do have a Twitter. I don't use it. I mean, I do use it because I like to laugh at the absolutely ridiculous AI. Well, I used to like to laugh at the absolutely unhinged AI bro takes on Twitter. I got tired of that. Now it's mostly pop culture shit. A little bit of politics. There's still a little bit of AI, because like those clowns are everywhere, but less and less. Also because those clowns are like slowly starting to disappear. But yeah, don't really use it is the point. Oh, this is not closed properly. Wonderful. Also, hi Kai and Loliet. I'm doing good. Alright, today we're not doing regular expressions. That was yesterday. You missed it. You just missed it. And it's also going to be Friday. But today we're doing Lisp. And today we're doing a build system. By the way, did I fix the typo in the title of the stream? Just want to make sure, because I accidentally wrote build system in lips, not Lisp. So I gotta make sure. Yes. Alright. Excited to be doing Lisp again. I've only done a little bit. A little tiny bit. Okay, well, again, this is mostly a prototype type of thing, but my current build system uses all of these linked lists, which are not the best. Not the best. Well, they're okay, and for that matter, like, the linked list itself is not the problem, because that's literally what Lisp stands for, list processor. So, actually, that's the reason I want to use Lisp, is because of how many lists I use. God damn it. But, yeah, it's not super easy to work with linked lists on C, as it is with, you know, a language literally called list processor. So I want to give that a try. Besides that, there's maybe a couple there's one big improvement that I want to make to the build system, or one thing that I need to consider ideally before the regular expression system is ready, and that is how to compile for the operating system. Because right now, the regular expression library uses that build system I just showed, which is configured by this file, which is a cred file, which gets compiled to a C file, which then gets compiled to an executable, which then gets executed to actually build the program. This works fine so long as it's a library that I don't think anyone's going to be interested in. But if I put it in the operating system, anyone who tries to compile that will need to have, you know, this kind of clunky build process, especially the first time it's clunky. Later on, it can even rebuild itself, but the first time it's kind of clunky that you have to build it before you can use it. And you have to compile it to C and then compile C to an executable. And of course, you need essentially 2 compilers just to be able to run these things. And the entirety of the operating system, which I do not have open, relies on makefiles. All of it is done with makefiles. So I have this library as well as a UI library, Uno, over the one I literally just closed. Oh my god. Both of them use this build system, and both of them eventually will need to be integrated into the operating system, so I need to figure that out. But essentially the solution that I came up with is, it's just going to be very simple. Let me open the operating system so I can actually back it up with some facts. My plan for how to structure, including external first-party dependencies, because they're still my libraries, but external first-party dependencies in the operating system will be essentially to create a new folder called libs. In here, we will have submodules for all of these things, such as the regular expression library and whatnot, and also the UI library, you know. And then a common makefile between all of them, which actually is kind of what I'm doing for this. For example, like all of these programs, all of these folders are different programs, and all of them are compiled using this makefile, which is then handled by this makefile, which just goes through them and applies this makefile to them. That's kind of the plan that I have, except which sources to compile is determined by just a file that I plan on calling well, hold on, I don't really need the operating system anymore for this. Just a simple file that the build system can actually create, where here. Oh, I closed it already. My god, I'm closing everything I need. This is so dumb. Well, anyway. Doesn't matter. The point is, just a simple text file that tells you which sources to compile. Can only compile C, can only compile those sources, no special linking, but I kind of control the structure of these libraries, and I'm okay with that. So literally just a text file that tells you a list of sources to compile that can actually be generated by the build system itself. So it acts like a fallback. No, okay, I didn't mean to delete that, but I don't actually need it, so it's fine. It acts as a fallback in case the actual build system is not available. If you want to do it with make, if you want to do it with a shell script, doesn't matter. You just iterate over this file, line by line. Each line is a source file. You compile that, you link them all together, you're done. That's all you need. As well as libraries. Okay, you do have to do that part manually. No, I don't need you anymore. I actually need to create a new folder. Can you let me deselect? Thank you. Alright. A folder with that name already exists. Interesting. I thought I had deleted it already. Alright, so the build system used to have its own project. Then I got rid of it. I just put it in a single header and I moved it to redlib. And now I am going to need this again because I'm going to use it for Lisp. Alright, so we're going to make a v3 folder and we're going to create a redbuild.lisp. I actually saw them using the Lisp extension in Quick Lisp, which is a package manager for Lisp. Now, I don't love those package managers. Now, Lisp is probably not as popular as like the Quick Lisp package manager is probably not as popular as like npm, but still vulnerable to supply chain attacks. So I really don't like that idea. I'm probably going to vendor any dependencies that I need, which essentially just means putting their Lisp file inside of here. You know what I would love though? A fucking syntax highlighter for Lisp that Zed promised because their LLM hallucinated it onto their website, but they lied. And the problem is that I have Racket, the only one that was actually available in the entirety of Zed's Zed's extension marketplace is Racket, which is a dialect of Scheme, I found out. And I have to use that for syntax highlighting. Anyway, we're going to print a little hello world. We're going to be okay with that. That is good. And then the plan is essentially to tell the sabbatical to run the script called v3/redbuild.lisp. Hello world. Very good. However, I kind of want to try, like, since this is just the library itself, the build system itself, what you use to configure the build system is separate. So I kind of want to try something a little bit more complex. I'm going to define a function called hello that just has no arguments and prints hello world, right? So if I call hello, that no longer works. So I already fucked up, didn't I? Did I already forget Lisp syntax? Probably. I've written Lisp 3 times. 2 times, actually. 1 on stream, 1 off stream. Well, luckily I have it here. Although this is like the full Lisp cookbook, which is nice, but I want the simple one. Defun. See, it's not def fun, it's defun. Okay, there we go. Alright, so I kind of want to see what exactly is the process for including this file into a file that I create here. Because I can actually call it redb. No, not going to do that. Because I am already using that extension for something else. Essentially, I'm going to want to call the hello function from here, but I need to remember how to include this file. Oh! A typical system definition looks like this. Look at that, I didn't know about all this. So I wasn't really even prepared for this shit. Loading. That's what I was afraid of. In Scheme, no, we're not using Scheme, we're using Common Lisp. It's just that I'm using a Scheme syntax highlighter because that's the only one that's available on Zed. For that matter, is VS Code better? Do they have anything built in? What a horrible state of affairs that I have to ask, is VS Code better? Oh, Christ. Do we see that? That yellow 5-star? Holy shit, this is a good package. How many reviews does it have? 1. It has 1 review. Why would you highlight it like this? Makes it look so thrustworthy. Did I say thrustworthy? That's not what I meant. But that's literally how untrustworthy it is. 1 review total. You see how fucking misleading that is? None of these have a whole lot of downloads, to be fair, so this is actually the best one. Okay, well. I have a trace route open here. Alright, either way, we're already using this one. Though it forgets that, can I set like an association for a file? Can I do something like that? Shouldn't that be a thing that I can do? As a user of Z, to tell it, hey, by the way, whenever you find a .lisp file, open it with this syntax highlighter instead of having to remind it every single time. I feel like that should be a thing, but I have a feeling that it's not. Languages and tools. Language servers, maybe? I can choose what gets set with what? Plugins, options, file type associations. Here we are. I was wrong about that. Okay. Oh. Oh. Someone a few streams ago was asking about how to move the panel to the left, and it turns out here it is in your settings.json, in config z settings.json. That's how you do it, apparently. There's gotta be another setting for it, but yeah. What I'm not seeing anywhere is what I came here to look for. Extend comments on new line, LSP. Is that what I want? That's not what I want. Title. Disable AI true. Theme. Formatter. Header insertion never. Yeah. There is another one. There is another one that I need to insert in here. Because it's actually like a really annoying thing that Clang does. And I do remember I had it on vibecoders on my laptop. So I'm going to do it real quick. Because it tells me about... Well, it's kind of right sometimes, kind of not. It's the one about unused headers. That is really annoying. Because like I am using them. Just because I'm using their includes to include something else. Maybe, yeah, it's better to have a more granular include system. But it is kind of annoying. Most importantly, it's annoying when I have my own version of, mems copy and whatnot. And I'm doing include memory / memory.h. And when am I even writing this? I have no idea. Anyway, and then I'm doing a mem copy. It is going to think that I'm not using memory, and right now it doesn't know what I'm trying to do even. But it's going to think that I'm not using this header because it thinks that mem copy comes from string.h, which it's so stupid that it comes from string.h, but whatever. I think that can go in the arguments. On VS Codium on my laptop I have it. God, this thing is such a pain. I don't want to deal with it. Doesn't matter. Alright, again, I came here to configure. Again, Z, honey, listen. I came here. Languages and tools. File associations, something like that. But I can probably do it from here, maybe? Racket, configure. I'm not seeing it. But editing settings.json? Yeah, so it expects me to write it by myself. I'm pretty sure. I'm supposed to write, without knowing the syntax that you expect, I'm supposed to write that I want .lisp files to be associated with this thing. This is apparently something that you need to do with a JSON file, hallucinating the syntax like you're a fucking LLM. Or you can ask your LLM to do it for you. This is not something that they ever considered should be a thing that you have to be able to do. All right, so Lisp include other files. That's how you do it. Can I then do that? Can I do load? See how every time I open the file, it loses the syntax? Alright, so we're going to tell the sabbatical to run the script called build.lisp. And that actually works. Cool. Okay, so you shouldn't call this function at all. And there we have it. Alright. Cool. Happy to know that I can do this. Alright, we are going to use a test.c file, and we're going to actually show what I just said. We're going to go into memory.h. We're going to give it a main, and we're going to print hello world, and then we're going to run a memcopy 000. I wonder what that's going to do. But is this just going to be my test file? So it's going to need to include a library called redbuild. It's going to need to include a that's really all you need to include by default. All right, so we will have to have a way of telling the system to, let me see, include lib or add lib. It's going to have a name, and I wanted to have an optional path, and I used to know how to do this. That's how you do it, okay. Name and path, like that, right? Let me see. Our function is going to first print loading. No, that's not how you do that. Actually, it's going to format the loading library from, and then arguments and strings are done like this. Am I right about that? You definitely don't do it like that. You don't use commas. Name and path. Is this no, that's not how you do it. Illegal function call. All right, let me see if I can figure it out without having to look it up. I'm creating the function. I'm giving it this path. I'm giving it this is what it's supposed to execute. And then it's format T, right? That's how you... No, here. I thought that's how you did it. It really bothers me that you cannot automatically link. Hold on, let me see if I can look it up. Z associate file type. You can customize these associations, okay. That's how you do it. Okay, so this thing I just had to hallucinate it because it's not in the settings.json, and also for me to actually fix most of my settings, I have to do it through a JSON file. So thanks for that. I guess it would be Racket, and I'm gonna associate it with LSP and Lisp. Not gonna do these. Would it be extension though? No. No, no. Okay, that looks good. Do I have to restart the editor? I have like 50 instances of it open. This is not the one that I had open. Is it just choosing a random one to open? It closed 4 and then it reopened the one that I wasn't using. And now it's not opening any. Alright, yeah. Also, I said that my programming language would have 0 use cases if I get rid of the build system, but I forgot. Now I have the French build system, the French programming language. So, what are you talking about? Hey, very nice, very nice. All right. So, also for testing purposes, then I'm going to include my only references I have to Lisp, which I have here. Though it's not a whole lot of code. The rest I have on my laptop, so maybe I can just look at it on there. That's not super helpful. Let's just start writing stuff. Hello, Peter. Alright, so what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong here? Wait, no, I did write, I do have one more file. Feel like a little word cloud, word processing type of program on here, if I'm not mistaken. It should be a Lisp file. Thank you for opening it in a new window. That's very helpful. See here, there's, to be fair, I copied this off of Stack Overflow, but this, if I'm not mistaken, is a, I love that it highlights as if I can move it, but then I can't. Fuck off. Alright, I'll keep it over here. If I need it. I can look at it for reference. I have a little bit more code, including, like I said, I have to provide a default. Is that how I do it then? Yeah, I'm doing this from the wrong folder. So it should be here. Build.lisp does not, oh wait, hold on. My bad. There you go. Okay, and now required argument is not a symbol path name. Okay, so how do you do this? Alright, so this is how you do that. No, it isn't. So the illegal function call is not about this, it's about this. What am I doing wrong? Okay. Lisp format, let's see. Common Lisp. Why Lisp? Because my current build system is already relying a lot on linked lists, so it's it only makes sense. There's an entire Wikipedia page for the format function in Lisp. Okay. Alright, so I think the wrong thing that I did is the argument type. I'm not sure why I'm using C, but I should be using something else. Do I need to be using anything for that matter? Yes, yes I do. Can I not just do... Come on, man. I feel like you're being stupid now. Alright, hold on. No, come on, this should work. Shouldn't this work? Isn't this the most simple code ever? What am I doing wrong? Is it just that I... How is that the problem? Like, this is the function body, right? Can I not just put multiple things in here? Is that a problem? It's not gonna be a it's not gonna be a problem between us here, Lisp, is it? What if I do this? That is a problem. Okay, so I don't nest them like that. Do I just do it like this then? Yeah, kind of. I see the problem now. Okay. So then I give you the optional path. We good? We good? And then I tell you to do from loading library and then this thing from this thing with the name and the path. Undefined variable path. Alright, so about the cookbook. This is the cookbook for functions. Variable number of arguments. So it actually has variadic arguments with the rest here. But no, there should be like a... Okay, default value. Ah, that's how you do it. No, so not this, but this. Can I do that? The path being the same as the name. No, can I just make it empty by default then? Also no. Now you're being unreasonable again. Argument is not a symbol. So then do I do this? Yeah? Yes. Apparently that's how I do it. That feels weird. So anyway, I want to do add library, and I'm going to do redlib, and the path to redlib is going to be this thing. And that fails. Odd number of key arguments. Okay, so key is not what I want. To an optional or key argument. So a key argument is not an optional argument. Okay, so optional is what I want. I want optional. Well, I don't want it to be optional, to be fair. I just want to give it a default value. Redlib is not a type of character. Okay, so printing. Lisp cookbook. That's not what I was looking for. String format. It has monetary format. That's very interesting. It has Roman. That's crazy unnecessary to have that by default. But okay, cool. Fixed point plural. Yo, it has plural? It has plural. This is a formatting system that's just like logical. It just makes sense. It's just like, hey, you know those like really annoying things that happen often when you're formatting data into text? Yeah, we're just gonna take care of them. Why is this the first time I'm seeing The languages, like core format in library, have this by default. This, as well as this is slightly less necessary, but this one is so necessary. There's so many times when you see, like, there are one families because they couldn't be bothered changing the plural if there's only one. Because keep in mind, there are 0 families, there is 1 family, there are 2 families, 3 families. So it's plural for everything except for 1. Can't believe nobody bothered with this. Also, I've been writing format T, and I have no idea what T means. Format directives start with this. A final character like A or A defines the directive. In between, okay, so what is the one for just a string? There you go for it. It actually does Roman. That's very interesting. Format T prints to standard output, whereas format nil returns a new string. Ah. Thank you. I was wondering. Format T is very weird. But okay, I'll take it. Now, this is for printing a character, so maybe this is for printing a string? No. This is not being very helpful with this shit. Is it A? A is for printing a primitive. But could that also print... Yeah, A looks correct. Okay. Alright, perfect. Where did I copy that from? Oh, that's the Z configuration. No, we don't want you. Didn't mean to paste that. Anyway, let me make this as simple as possible. Maybe I'm not gonna make them optional, but so this is not gonna be optional. Path, you're not gonna be optional. And it's gonna be path, and then it's gonna be file lib, the name of the library itself, right? So you load as redlib here and here, and so the library is this, the path is this, and the thing is we can format it however we want. We can even tell it to do format nil to create the path as this slash this slash this path name lib. Although format nil is going to be useful later, but not right now. Bada bing, bada boom. That was a mistake. Comment not inside a back quote. Ugh. Sorry, I'm still holding on to some C. Why is it? I feel like it's doing something a little weird. Oh. Oh. Hold on. No, that's getting worse. That is getting worse. You're not supposed to do that. It is interpreting this as an argument and taking this into it? Or is it resolving that here? Well, I don't understand what's happening. Hold on. Let me disable this one, right? So I'm just printing this. Loading library from path. each of these are 3 different arguments passed into the function. Redlib, this, and this, which you then combine into one, but we're not doing that right now. Loading library redlib from... Okay. And then I was going to a new... Okay, how do you do a new line again? This one. Wait, something else incredibly based here. Only prints a new line unless you're already at 1. This printing system is genuinely so simple to use. It takes care of all the issues you might have. Alright. And suddenly I understand what's happening. Why it looked like this. It's because it was combining the two and I didn't realize it wasn't going to a new line. Okay. So, just like that, we're combining the path for this thing. Now, path I can make optional. Can I make path optional but not the other thing? So I want path to be this by default. And then, can I skip it? No. Unless I can do this. I'm not sure if I can. No. Alright, so optional has to go last, I guess? Well, to be fair, this should also be optional. That kind of skips my issue, because lib... Hey, how overboard can I go with the defaults here? Let me see, hold on. Repeated optional in lambda list. Oh, so I was making them both optional, wasn't I? Yes. Okay, can I make lib name? Yes, yes I can. Okay, so can I make it a format lib name lib then name then dot a? End of file. Okay, so did I do that wrong? Did I skip one? I think I skipped one, yeah. I can do that. I can do that. Holy shit. Nice. Okay. So I can have a default path and I can have a default library name, which means I can add a library like redlib. I can add a library like raylib, for example. So redlib doesn't really use this. So here I do have to explicitly tell you that the name of the library is libshared.a. But for raylib, the name of the library is libraylib.a. So it automatically generates that. That's cool. That's very, very cool. Although I don't use raylib, I use glfw. So same thing. Same difference. And maybe I can even give this one a subpath, where the value of the subpath by default is this one, and we put the subpath here. And we do another one of these. That way, if I need to, see, what would be cool is to be able to tell it, I only want this optional. But I think I can do that with key, if I'm not mistaken. I can then do subpath and give it a value of src, which actually for raylib it's that. Not quite. Alright, so let me look up what key means. Named parameters. Key. It is not always convenient to remember the order of arguments. It is thus possible to supply arguments by name. We declare them with key argname. We set them with argname value. The function call, we share argname, and we use argname as a regular variable in the function body. Yes. But I can't really do it like that. Mixing optionals and key parameters. Okay, that's what I want. It is generally a style warning, but it is, you know, I don't care. Fuck that. Optional. Because I want to make this one a key. So I can do that. Also no. Odd number of key arguments. How is it an odd number? There's one. I'm starting to understand why it's a style argument, I guess. Although I did this here. I have a function called split. It has an argument called string. And then it has a key for the delimiter that it uses to split, which by default has this value. That's exactly what I'm trying to do. That's the wrong code base. All right, let me do it for just one. So simplify things a little bit. Defun add lib name and then a key parameter called path, which is going to have a default value of this thing. I'm gonna close that. We're gonna close that, and then we are going to format t, and it's gonna be the path followed by the name. Path followed by the name. We're good now. No, we're not. Because I didn't close the function. Still. Unknown key argument, the shit. I'm a little confused by the syntax of what's going on here. I just don't understand how this is an unknown key argument. Can I do this? How is that an unknown key argument? I don't get it. Wait, no, because why are you complaining about the same key argument? Ah, okay, hold on. This. Oh my god, the entire problem. Okay, got it. Alright, and what if I also want another key path called subpath, and the default for that is going to be empty. And how we go into that is /a subpath. Alright, there we go by default, it just goes into that. And I'm going to give you a subpath. The path is actually going to be this one, and the subpath is going to be src. Alright, there we have it. And then what if I don't want to specify a path? Alright, there we have it. And then a lib argument, which is going to be by default lib hello.a. That argument goes here. Alright, so far so good. And last thing is the lib argument's value is actually going to come from this expression here. Librelib. Although I put it in the wrong place, I do realize that. Whoops. Alright, so there's our library. And I can specify, by the way, this one has subpath src, otherwise I can just specify the name of it. So by default, yeah. I'll need to solve this. This isn't necessarily a problem, this could still work, but maybe it won't. By the way, does it do like paths? I thought it did. I thought I saw, yeah, hash p, this thing. P returns a truth value. That's not what I meant, no. I mean, I'm seeing this here. I'm assuming it means path, but I have no idea. I'm just gonna try it. That doesn't work. Though, maybe I want to print it. No, not quite. Alright, forget about that. Let's keep it as it is right now. I'm gonna make the subpath this by default, so it does that. At the very least, I know it's technically not wrong and I can fix it later. Alright, that's for adding libraries. It's going to create this string for libraries, and right now I'm okay with just printing them. But I'm going to start doing like a little default here. Redlib is going to be that. Default path stays as that. No subpath, and its name is different. It's libshared.a. So that is how you add redlib. That is how you add it. Okay, good. Any more dependencies? Not really, not right now. All right, so I'm going to move on to defun add source. And this is just going to have the source name. And again, it's just going to print it for the time being. It's going to print, lib. And then source, and you're going to print, wrong argument type. You're going to print our name. That one's going to be very simple, very, very easy. Right, so this is technically supposed to happen here. Add redlib and then add source test.c. Nope. The variable format is unbound. Why is format unbound? What you mean? Ah, why? Yeah, that's sure. You got a point. You got a point. You got a point. All right, and as always, I forgot to put the this, was it? Yes. All right. So I already find it so much easier to work with Lisp on a build system because I can just tell it, this is how you do a library, this is how you do a source file. And then my configuration is literally just this. Simple. Simple. Okay. I might still be doing things in a somewhat C-oriented way. Again, once you get into the Lisp paradigm, I might even make it better than it is right now, but I have to say this is so simple. To the point that this is all the configuration. Whereas my other build system does require, let me open The regex problem, not problem, build that I was doing yesterday requires, it has this, then also this, for adding the source files, then compile, generate commands, but the point is, behind the scenes in the redlib library, there's a lot going on. And to be fair, the only reason that Lisp doesn't have a whole lot of boilerplate is because that's just part of the language itself. It's just running in a virtual machine that makes it very convenient. Okay. So of course we're going to have a defun compile function that is actually going to run the compilation. And this one isn't going to take any arguments because you're setting up all the arguments yourself. The prereader macro uses parse name string to read a path name. Parse name string. Let me see what that does. Thank you. Parses the name of a file within the substring of thing bounded by start and end. What is AI yapping about, by the way? Parsing a name string entails breaking a single unstructured text string such as Mr. Jonathan Johnny Doe Jr. into its precise... Who the fuck are you? Who the fuck is Jonathan, brother? Get the fuck out of here. My god. Always needs to feel helpful. Such a pick-me. Genuinely ridiculous. Thing optional default path name. Key start end junk allowed. I'm still not entirely sure how to use optionals because... Well, I guess I just can't skip... If I skip one optional, I have to skip all the optionals before that one as well. No. I have to write all the optionals before that one as well, essentially. Whereas key allows me to skip the optionals that I want. Alright, I kind of understand. That is a good way of doing optionals, honestly. You can do key parameters or you can do optionals. Yeah, the way that like C++ handles it, you can only put optionals at the end. Though, kind of same here, but this also allows you to have keys, which makes it easier. Moving on, compile isn't going to take any arguments because all the arguments are going to be put in here. Maybe? Or maybe it is going to take a list of arguments from these things, eventually. Because I was thinking of doing it with parameters, but why should I do it with parameters? I can just tell it to compile. No, I'm okay with having it parameterized. Parameterized. Parametered. Going to compile here. How do I always make mistakes? How am I always making mistakes on the simplest fucking functions? Come on, what did I do? Caught warning. Conflicting with the function declared return type. What return type? It's literally a function that prints this. It takes no arguments. What does this mean? Derived type of print going to compile here is value simple array character 21 and optional. Values or function symbol cons boolean and optional. Huh? What? 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 I'm back to the absolutely nonsensical error messages because what do you mean with all this shit? What does any of it mean? That is so weird. What does it mean? This is okay, I think. And this should be okay. I don't understand what the problem is. Defun compile Is the name compile the problem? Because that could be a problem. Comp. That is a problem with Lisp. It has a lot of very common function names already taken. Makes me want to not do the entire build system just because the word compile is already taken up by a library that, by the way, I'm not adding. This is a problem that I have kind of with scripted languages. You can see this is the root of my code. My code is literally this and this, nothing else. I haven't defined anything called compile. So why is there a function called compile? Obviously there is, because it has some built-in functions, but I don't see them. When I'm working with C, for example, I can go here and like click and be like, oh, that's where memcopy comes from. Where really the only function with a slightly hard-coded name is main itself. The only one that I really can't take. Anything else I can, so long as I don't include its header. Of course, when you're working with dependencies, that becomes a lot harder, but that's a different story. Now I have to call this one compile prog, because compile is already taken up. Why is compile already taken up? What does that do? Watch it be an entire build system. Common Lisp compile. Did that say compiles an interpreted function? Produces a compiled function from definition. Huh? Okay. It's metaprogramming shit. Okay. I guess that's fine. Okay, Lisp. Okay. Alright, so when it comes to writing my my code, I can write it like this, where I'm calling 3 different functions. Telling it to add a lib, telling it to add a source, telling it to compile, and internally, though I haven't done this part yet, I'm supposed to save all of this to, you know, a list of libraries and a list of sources. Not doing that. Of course, kind of the alternative is to tell compile prog that, you know, these are the libs. Just don't quote me on the syntax like at all, but this obviously feels a lot more, or I can even do something like module. It seems like a taken word. So redlib redb module. I'm gonna have to prefix stuff like I do in C pretty much. Redb module, these are the libraries that it uses. These are the sources that it uses. Right, something like this. And then I can do compile. This is obviously a lot more clean because it allows me in a much simpler way to define multiple modules, which, for example, I am not doing in this project, but I am doing, for example, in the compiler. Here I have 3 different modules, kind of dependent on each other. First is the rule generator. So you run that, you compile it, and you run it. If the rule generator worked, then you run the kind of self-hosted section of the compiler where you compile cred to C with this function. And if that succeeds, then you compile the C sources of the compile of the compiler using this here, and then you compile it and you run it. So of course, when I'm working on a project like this, it's a lot easier to do things like this. So this kind of syntax that I want. It feels a little object-oriented, to be fair. And I do think that Lisp does have object orientation. Unless there is a non-object oriented way of doing this, but honestly, these are objects. I'm okay with doing object orientation if that's what we're kind of trying to do. All right, generic functions and methods. Like generic? Like generic. They have generics in Lisp. They have generics in oh my god. What do you mean you have generics? What the fuck do you mean you have generics? That is crazy. I'm just gonna rewrite my entire shit in Lisp now. This language just keeps getting better and better. Yo, MX, what's up? You're a cat now. Welcome. What do you mean this language has fucking generics? I have nothing to say while I'm fixing my hair, so. What do you mean this language has fucking generics? I'm still so surprised by that. Absolutely insane language. I think it's a little slow. You know. Lisp. I keep misspelling the name of this language too. Versus C performance. Common Lisp can be faster than C in a research paper. They picked 4 specific algorithms, disabled Lisp safety checks, compared performance between specific C compiler, and found a 10% improvement in specific cases. Yeah. Can Lisp actually be faster? Isn't Lisp 5 to 10 times slower than C, C++, and Rust? Don't put Rust in that list. Rust can be as fast as C++. It won't get to the level of C. You know, if you want to do anything useful with it anyway. Lisp can be as fast, if not faster than C. I don't believe you. Fucking bullshit. No way. You're lying. I'm in deep denial. I am in deep denial about this. Alright, let's do some... Okay, so Lisp can be as fast as C, apparently, allegedly, with classes wherever you need them. But you mostly don't need them, which is like the perfect way of doing classes. With generics, functional programming, a better macro system. Like, I've seen what you can do with the macro system. I've done very little with it, but yeah, I've seen what you can do. I can... Whew. The fact that I'm seeing my compiler deprecated in real time is actually so funny. The way I can see my compiler be deprecated in real time. MIC code. There used to be Lisp operating systems, by the way. I'm pretty sure that was a thing. Because there used to be Lisp machines. That's another thing. Just wanna bring that up. There used to be Lisp specific hardware. Hardware just for Lisp. And by the way, this came from the AI bubble, where people were like, well, we need our own specific hardware for AI. And then it went nowhere. In case that sounds familiar to anybody. By the way, that implementation of AI, a lot smarter than the current one. Not even... by itself that it's smarter than the current one. It's just that if they were even slightly smart about the current implementation of AI, they would have combined it with this shit. Because, like, I'm not gonna give them ideas. The last thing I want is for them to debubble themselves or actually make something usable or useful. So no, I want all those companies to go bankrupt. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. Hello, El Humano. It's a suspiciously human name. Alright, so you can do class and generics in Lisp, the second oldest programming language. I'm pissed off. In the best way possible, but I'm pissed off. Alright, no, not OBS. We're gonna go to... So all of these... I'll change eventually, but we're gonna want a def class. Alright, def class for a red module. That's the name of my class. It inherits from vehicle, whereas I can make it inherit from nothing. Okay. Then we have parameters, I assume. Right, these are all the parameters. This is the class itself. I'm not sure if I'm messing up the indentation. Like, I'm putting this on the same level as this, whereas the syntax highlighter puts it here. This feels more readable to me. Maybe that's just me and my sinful C brain. I don't know. Anyway, what parameter is gonna have? It's gonna have libraries. And I can even give it documentation. Can I literally just do that? Static dependencies in a string, perhaps, would be nice. Then I'm gonna get sources, so which the documentation is source files, C source files. Let's face it, our compiler is C only. We don't do C++ anymore. I can do compilation flags or preprocessor, preproc flags, flags for the C preprocessor, preprocessore. All right, and can I define methods for the damn thing? All right, no. Well, what's going on here? I don't understand. All right, hold on. You define generics, right? Def generic description object, yeah. Okay. You have this accessor called vehicle speed. The initial argument is speed. The type is a real. I can't say I understand this, but again, we have the cookbook. Let's see how far we get with just, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to write it here. Okay, so how do I instantiate my class? I want to do a class of. Did they actually define this function somewhere so I can understand what they're doing? Could you maybe not use functions that don't exist? Make your code a little bit more understandable? No. Alright, so I want a class of redmod. Will that do anything? By default, I believe, yeah, crash. Redmod is unbound. Okay. Still, though. Redmod is still unbound. Oh. Oh, okay. Oh, no, I was doing it wrong. It's make instance. Make make instance red mod, where I can then tell it it's okay, I can just do an empty one, can I? The variable red mod is unbound. Your mom is unbound. Oh, I have to use this symbol. No. This symbol? I'm not sure which one. Kind of feels like both. Because you're complaining about libs, and I don't remember. Is it the shit that I wrote here? Yeah. This whole thing is unbound. Yeah, okay. Okay, so we make an instance of red mod, and that instance is then, we're holding it, right? We have it. And can I then give it libraries as just an empty string? Can I do that? No, of course not. Every time I try something new, it has to give me an error, and then eventually we can do it, right? Invalid initialization argument. Okay, so how did you do it? Because like you did speed and rowers. You have an accessor, which you never described, so I don't know what it looks like. You have a type for it, which I never defined. I never defined anything for this thing, to be fair. Oh, init arg. That's probably missing. Init arg. That's called libs. Instead of libraries. Libs. Okay. That's really all it takes. So what if I do this as this thing? As add lib. I'm going to do redlib. But of course, for redlib, I have to specify the lib parameter to be lib shared.a. And another one, add lib raylib. Again, I'm not using raylib, I'm using glfw. Not sure why I keep adding raylib to this thing, but whatever. Now, these don't actually return functions, so that's a problem. How is that an odd number, though? Like, and this literally what I did. Parentheses issues. Or do I just need to do this? Probably not. Illegal function call, okay. I actually haven't told it that this is a list. Can I do that? You're good with that? Okay, so these two things ran, but of course, they don't generate an actual function, an actual string. Now they do. They should return an actual string at the end of it. I think. Keyword argument, not a symbol. Okay, that looks better. Of course, you add that at the end, which you shouldn't. Also make it nil there, and okay, at least that looks better. Keyword argument, not a symbol. I don't understand what you mean by that. I don't understand most of its errors, to be honest. Is it only giving me that error for glfw, but not for this one? Because you have two. Unless, again, I'm not exactly making a list called libs. Right, I'm not really doing that. Though that makes for an, not initial. This should be pre-prog flags. Though they don't have an initializer either, so. Init arg pre-proc stop auto-completing. Type is a list as well. Alright, so this is srcs and this is pre-proc. Illegal function call, okay. I want to make a list. I use the word list. Wait, accessor is, the editor is that, by the way. Accessor is the name of the method. To call it, you have to call a function named classmate method name. Classmate. Fucking hell. Reinventing the English language. I'm missing a pair of parentheses around my methods. Now, I think it did what I wanted to do. I think. No, it would have told me if I have any issues, but okay. Alright, so this is exactly how I would want to do it, right? I can define the libraries that this red mod uses. I also need to define a name for it, so I'm not done here. Name has an init arg of name, that's it, and a type of string, I'm assuming. There's also other types of flags. Maybe, hold on. Can I look at the red build current header file? Even better would be to look at the old header file, but because this one just has a lot of functions, some of which you're not supposed to call, because it's a header only library. So that's not very helpful. It has all of the functions that it uses, even the utilities exposed here. But either way, can give me a hint of what I want. We have a debug, a parse target. See, these are helpers. Yeah, the target type, that isn't really up to the module. That's going to be a different thing. Adding a dependency, local dependency, system library, and framework. So this is different ways of adding dependencies. Yeah, because the lib is not entirely correct. That is one way of doing things. That is one way of importing things. The issue is that when I'm including libraries manually, that's how I do it. I do I and then path to the library. And then when I'm compiling, I do path /lib.a. But you can also do lc, for example, to include the libc library from the compiler itself. You can also do framework and then I don't remember the name. Whatever. Freaking metal. Which is the Apple way of doing this, pretty much. Just frameworks are different than normal libraries. They are not even dynamic libraries. They're more than that. They're bundled libraries in a way. It's a bit more complex than just a library itself, but you can treat it as that. I agree with your anger a while ago of developers not offering builds for their projects. I have to go install Rust to compile a basic command line utility because it doesn't come pre-compiled. See, that's what I'm talking about. And command line utility not pre-compiled is straight up bullshit. Because if you don't compile a different kind of program, then I can understand, because different distros of Linux and different operating systems work in different ways. But a command line utility, come on, man. Come on. The one thing that all Linux distros and Mac and kind of Windows agree on, and you cannot pre-compile for that. That is ridiculous. The one thing they all agree on because it's actually part of the standard. They never bothered updating the standard for graphics, so with graphics I can kind of understand the pain for developers. There's no standard for installing regular programs on Linux, so I understand the anger for developers. Or the frustration for developers. No excuse when it's a command line utility. Zero excuse for that one. I'm sorry. Okay, so yeah, there are different kinds of libraries that we're going to want to include, but of course we're going to skip that part for now, otherwise we're going to be here forever. But essentially, adlib handles this kind, whereas there's going to be systemlib. Actually, we can fucking go for it. Syslib with a name, that's all you need. And defun sys framework with a name, where essentially you just return the name. That's all it does. Because right now I'm working with strings, but even then I'm probably going to want to use classes, because really what I want to use is not classes but types. But this works fine for me. My library class. Alright, so let's get started with that one right away. Is going to have an include no, header include, a source include, and a that's it. That's actually all it does. See, my old build system used to be able to, or at the very least I wanted it to be able to auto-compile your dependencies if you needed to, but I never really got around to doing that. I added alternative ways of doing that, but I never did it too well, so it doesn't matter. We're not going to include that here because I'm not using it. Alright, your init arg is going to be just the first name, the first part of your name, header or source. No, just take the full name. Take the full name. That's fine. What's interesting is that what the hell happened there? The multiple cursor sometimes glitches. Dependencies can be annoying to manage in C projects. That's why I don't use many libraries. Yeah, exactly. Like, keep in mind, one big reason why I didn't want to keep my old build system, and I would prefer using at least a common language, and most importantly, a scripting language like Lisp, is that I can do this. I can just define this shit, give you this library. I can even put it in the project itself if I want to. I can then give you a configuration file inside the project. Take those two, bada bing, bada boom, you're done. Alright. So the lib class. Instead of doing this, we're going to do a library class. That way we can do adlib, and eventually this will become more complex because it will be able to be per operating system. Because again, Mac uses frameworks in the same place where it also uses these in some places. It also uses frameworks, and it also uses these. Linux only uses these, and I think Linux needs a dependency that Mac doesn't. don't quite remember. I have to look at what my actual build system is doing to properly give you default configurations. But it doesn't matter. You're lucky if the C, C++ lib that you want to use has the same build system as your project. Yes. That is also why I want this one to have a fallback. See, from the sources, I'll be able to just create a file that lists out all the sources, one per line, and then you can iterate over that with a makefile or with a even a bash script where you take care of all the dependencies if you want. That way I don't have to deal, you don't have to deal with this build system if you don't want to. The build system will also create its own fallback, which is what I'm going to use inside of the operating system. That's kind of the plan for this. Alright, so yes, I want you to format this string, right? But this string here is actually the string for the source include of my program. By the way, both of these are actually just strings. So type is string. Hello, Red Center. How you doing? All right. What is this called again? Make instance. Make instance of lib class. All right. You're gonna make an instance of lib class where you're gonna pass this as the source include. And just the first part of this as the header include. OS is going well. Technically, working a little bit outside of it right now. Right now I'm working on a build system. Version 3, technically. Even though version 2 is nowhere to be found, and version 1 is nowhere to be found because I deleted it. Version 2 is not inside of the build systems project anymore. I integrated it into the library. Now I'm doing it in Lisp. And yesterday I was doing regular expressions for the systems documentation, for the operating systems documentation, but I was doing it in its own library, so technically haven't streamed it in a couple days. But I remade its terminal in C instead of C++, so I'm happy about that. It's a little bit buggy, but I'm not done with it yet. So many projects using CMake, and then actually CMake just generates a Ninja project file or a Meson project file. I never understood why you would need Ninja or Meson. Like, those seem overly complicated. But yeah, why are you using CMake if you're just gonna use those? Anyway, does this work? Bada bim, bada boom, it does not. No more arguments. Oh, wait. Okay, I forgot to delete these two. The function source include is undefined. Fuck you mean the function source include? There is no function called source include. Again, I don't know if I'm doing the indentation right. Couldn't care less. This looks good to me. LGTM. Couldn't care less. Alright, so I'm making I see. I copied a bit too much. Alright, that's the problem. Okay, so that's solved. Right, so when you're adding a normal library, local library, if you will, we can even call it that, local lib, system lib, or system framework. When you add a local library, what you do is you include path/library name, so this will result to this, then the path by default is this, and the /library name is, I don't know, redlib. And the source include is going to be this same path / the subpath, which right now I'm resolving to this because I'm not sure if this will work. But yeah, right now it's this, and then lib shared.a. Right, so it will resolve in those two when I get it from here and here. Let's do the same for the system library. So the system library is interesting because in this case, there is no header include. You don't have a header include. That one is empty. And the source include is just format nil /l and then the name. Close that. And very, very similar for frameworks. Except they do framework, and then the name separated by a space. Look how easy it is to write shit. Like string manipulation in this language is just... Again, since this happened at the beginning of the stream, I was looking at the string manipulation in Lisp. Look at how incredible this is. All right. It has some very helpful, very basic stuff. For example, we have... I'm a little lost in this document. And I don't remember the syntax, so I can just show it myself. Alright, so we have stuff like concatenate. But again, a lot of languages tend to have, you know, libraries with this type of stuff, especially functional languages, which Lisp is not a functional language, but it does do functional programming. But that's not what I wanted to show. I just cannot find it. Alright, take my word for it, because I can't be wasting my time with this. But it allows you to, for example, add a new line at the end of something, which I think the syntax for that is this. But you can also add a new line unless you already have a new line, which is something that in most other languages you have to do a whole lot of like, you know, let me check. Am I on a new line? It does that for you. Another thing that I noticed that it does is it can format numbers into words, like the number, I think the argument type was R for that. If I do R2025, it will write it as 2025. Which is not super useful, but it is nice. And another thing that I noticed, I forget, I'm blanking on what the last thing was that was super useful. Hold on, let me look up just new line. Okay, so it was around here. Plural, oh, the plural, yeah. You know how many times you look at someone writing something like, there are 1 families. Whereas this automatically takes care of that for you, plural. So 7 families or 1 family. It is very small stuff, but it is quality of life. And it's very nice that it has that. And now I need to remove this argument before I forget about it. Alright. Very much a developer, but very new to Lisp. So, yeah, just... actively becoming Lisp build as we speak, but I'm not quite there yet. I'm definitely there. I'm down the rabbit hole. I'm in the cult. Rust couldn't get me to join that fucking cult, but wait, did I see before Rust is the JavaScript of systems programming? Just remembering I read that in the chat a minute ago. Rust couldn't get me to drink the Kool-Aid, but Lisp, I walked up to the... Okay, now. The whole drinking the Kool-Aid reference is very, very dark. I don't know why we keep saying it, but whatever. Okay, so I think it's genuinely this easy for me to declare a module of my system. I tell you, these are the libraries that you're going to use, which we're not going to use glfw, so we're just going to remove that. Sources. I'm going to tell you the sources. Right now I have a placeholder, but really I'm going to want to have a list of sources. I'm just going to call it test.c. See, a thing that was very interesting when it came to working with source files in my old build system, is that let's say that I have a bunch of files like test, and I have hello.c, and I have world.c, and whatever, right? So the way that I was doing these dependencies, I was putting them in a linked list, which is essentially the same thing that I'm doing here. But then I was just taking all the contents of the essentially very, very simple way of how I was doing the compilation step. First, I write a buffer where I write the command. Build systems are usually more complex than just a command that you run. They tend to handle progressive compilation, which is where you ask the source file for their pronouns, or where you don't recompile source files that haven't changed, essentially. I just don't remember if the word is actually progressive compilation or something similar to that. It also handles more complex stuff. It can do multi-threading, for example, a lot of that stuff. Mine doesn't do that yet. I think, you know, if I'm quite liking what I'm writing here, so yeah. But anyway, what I was doing before is I write the compiler, I write all the includes, then I write the source files, then I write the output. Except that wouldn't work. It wouldn't be a .a file. It would be a .elf file. For a library, though, it gets a little bit more complex than this. For a library, you need to do a different compilation step for each file. And then you do it for all of them. And then you have to do AR. I believe RCS are the arguments. I don't remember what that stands for. You take all your test files. Not all your test files, your source files, but with .o. And then, I'm not sure if you use an output or not, but anyway, you do output.a. So it's very similar in the structure. But when you think about what it takes for me to build this in C, it's a whole lot more processing for handling this test case. This, not test case. This specific case for libraries, right? Whereas if I'm building a bundle program, I just run this, and then I do a whole bunch of folder operations. When I'm running a command line program, also just do this. When I'm writing a library program, I have to do all of this shit. And from the point of view of, you know, the person making the build system handling all those variables, it can be a little bit cumbersome to do it in C. In other languages, especially functional languages, it can be as nice as Lisp, to be honest. But I like Lisp. What can I say? I like Lisp. Its syntax is just top notch. So simple. What can I say? Like I said, I'm becoming Lisp build. Alright, can I just make this an empty list? Can I just make it an empty list? Is that a thing you can do? Don't think so. Adlib, oh, adlib is now local lib. Where is adlib? Oh, right, I have another file. Yeah, okay. I'll come back to you in a second. Alright, I just needed to write a whole bunch of code. So there we go. Alright. SICP? What is SICP? Structure and interpretation of computer programs. Ah. Yeah. I've seen it. I'm not gonna lie, I've considered buying it because look at this fucking... Genuinely, I don't read programming books, right? I prefer to just program and learn that way. But look at this fucking cover. Tell me you don't want that somewhere. This says eval and apply, by the way. This is a lambda function. The table has a paw. I don't fucking know what that is. But that illustration, absolutely incredible. That reason alone is enough for me to read programming books. I would say the first programming book, but I actually mentioned my dad had an old IBM 360, IBM 360 programming book. I've been looking at that. So that would be a lie. Also, another interesting thing about that book is, first off, it starts off very early with like defining binary and then defining what is it called? Bits. But then it says that bytes are 9 bits because a parity bit is included. I'm not sure what they meant by that, because in other places where they talk about registers, they say registers are 32 bits, 4 bytes. So yeah, you still count a byte as 8 bits. But then you're also saying that a byte is 9 bits because it includes a parity bit. That's a little weird. And to be clear, parity bits are very common. I just don't know like how they play into this. Maybe in serial, yes, that's what I expect. 'Cause, like, the thing about parity bits is, oh shit, fucking blew up the computer with that one. The thing about parity bits is you tend to add a, well, hold on, how many is this? 5. Let me add. Alright. The point is I have 8 bits here. And I'm going to add a parity bit that is simply used to make it always an even number of ones or an even number of zeros. Or sorry, an odd number of ones, essentially. So the way that it described it there, it was an odd number of ones. So here we have 1 1, 2 1s, 3 1s. So it's already odd. So here I write a 0. If instead this is a 1, then we have 4 1s here. That's an even number. We want to make it odd, so the parity bit.
Streaming while I am on. KR0MBUS subscribed to your channel for 11 months.
Thank you for subscribing to my channel for 11 months. Yes, it is actually me streaming while you are on. Isn't that amazing? Thank you so much for the subscription. Yeah, so that is a parity bit, in case someone didn't know. Now, is a parity bit, since there's an ad running, I kind of didn't pause for it. Is it always supposed to work like that? Is it always making it odd? No, you kind of decide. I guess it's because of convention. The even parity bit and the odd parity bit. So on the IBM 360, which by the way, the computer that this is for, this is the computer that this assembly book is for. My dad had that lying around. In case you didn't know it was old, this is what the book looks like. It's in Italian. Actually, I don't even have to open it. Look how yellow that is. Also, the fact that this picture is in a museum, it tells you not to touch. That's how old this thing is. But yeah, apparently this one uses an odd parity bit, which expects to create an odd number of ones. So if you have an even number of ones, you write a 1 to make it odd. If you have an odd number, you write a 0 to keep it odd. Looks like it's out of Stranger Things. I have to say, this aesthetic for computers is peak. We should go back to this shit. This, actually, it has a name. You know how we decided to name any kind of aesthetic to give it a name? It has something to do with cassettes, I feel like. But that was, at least I remember that name before it came, before we started just adding core to the end of everything to call it an aesthetic. So it wasn't cassette core. Cassette futurism. Something like that. It's kind of what this aesthetic is called. Like the alien type of thing, for example. The alien aesthetic, by the way, is just peak. Incredible. Absolutely. We should just do this. We should just do this. Look at that. Look at that. Was there a Ripley in Alien as... Wait, yeah, you play as Ripley's daughter, don't you? Anyway, doesn't matter. Cassette punk, is that what it's called? Maybe. Looks like it, yeah. Look at how amazing... You good? Did you fall? Are you okay? Don't pretend nothing happened. What was that? You know I can look. It was recorded, right? I can look at what happened. I have it on camera. Yeah, we should just go back to this. But like at the same time, cheap plastic is maybe not the best. Yes, the book is in Italian. It does look very Stranger Things when you put it like that. Yeah, the tape and whatnot. Stranger Things before it got dumb. Anyway. Alright. Ad is over. Especially like the first season where they had all the surveillance and stuff. No, I think you actually spelled cassette right and I spelled it wrong the first time. Wait, how do you spell cassette? I think it's like that, right? Cassette tape, yeah. Double S, double T. No, you spelled it right. The first time I spelled it wrong. Okay. So, Mr. Jester is thirsty and just fell off the bed, I think. I'm not sure. He looks okay, though. Yeah, he's back. He is also very clumsy, so it happens. Alright, so we're actually using classes in Lisp, because Lisp has classes, and it has a better implementation of classes than fucking C++. Then again, that's not hard to do. Honestly, the way that I plan on using them isn't even like you use classes, it's more so like you use just types in C, essentially. Because the point is I just want to hold a bunch of stuff together. Right, so I want to have a module of my build system, which has a name, which by the way I'm not giving it. Has a name, libraries that it includes. Right now it only includes one, but it can include as many as you want. You can actually make it a little bit prettier even. Source files to compile, and then this. Now for source files, another thing that's really useful in most projects is to just say all .c files, or all files with a specific extension, right? So not sure if we're gonna have time to build that today, but of course it is something I want to build. That will kind of require a little bit of like directory traversal and string manipulation and whatnot. That's gonna be interesting to do. Alright, okay, so I kind of want to separate the module that we're compiling from the environment that we're using to compile. Maybe the environment I can actually make global. So instead of using a class, I use just parameters. I want to define which compiler you use. So def parameter compiler default GCC. And here's a question. Do we have enums? So I can have specific values referencing them by a hard-coded word that gives me an error if I misspell it. If it does, this is the best programming language ever. From the way that they're saying here, I can just use that? I prefer to use keywords. Like the entire point that I want to do this is I want to use a keyword because what if I accidentally misspell it, right? Instead of apple, I forget a P, or I get the E and the L mixed up, and then I don't realize why my program doesn't compile. Okay, so I don't want to do this. But hold on. Because Lisp has macros. Should allow me to do this manually, shouldn't it? Has great meta programming. Did I do a little bit of that? I did a print line macro in this program, which essentially just takes print line and then any arguments, and it formats them with, again, a Stack Overflow type of thing that I got. Don't remember exactly what's going on here. But yeah, just prints all the arguments that it would have printed otherwise, and then a new line at the end, which I didn't know. So much better to use this new line, which is if we're already at a new line, we don't produce a new one. Although, why would we be at a new line at this point? Doesn't make sense, but here makes perfect sense. You can even use it at the beginning, technically. Yeah, that would make sense. Or in print list, it would make more sense. In both of them, actually. Hope I'm doing right, because I'm not compiling this thing, but I don't really plan on using it. It was just for testing, for learning a little bit more Lisp. It's supposed to be doing some language processing over a list of to-dos in my operating system that I've compiled from the OS, but I'm not really doing a whole lot with that right now. Okay. Here's a kind of unfortunate thing about kind of the next parts of doing the well, no, hold on. Let me see how far I can get with this, right? Parameter GCC, a compiler GCC. Right, so that's really all I need for a very basic thing. Then I want to do a def fun compile redb or compile module or redb compile module mod. When it turns yellow, I already know. Okay, and another thing is I need to remember the syntax of Lisp can be a little weird, and you can feel like, you know, sometimes these are equivalent to brackets, right? Because how would I write this function in C? I would do void redb compile with a module which is a red mod, a pointer or not. Then I would do this, and in here I would put all the instructions that go in this function. Whereas here, the instructions just go here as different arguments to the def fun instruction. So I'm defining a function, and all of these are arguments to that function. The first one is the name. You can also put a definition of what it does. Compile a red build module. Then arguments module. Then here the instructions, right? So print beginning compilation. Then we can do the compilation, and then we can print compilation is finished. Cool. However, I do wonder, can I do a mod, a success, and a fail? Right, so if I succeed, great. If I call the success function. If I fail, I call the fail function. Should really be as easy as just doing an if condition, then success, otherwise fail. where in here I would put all the arguments for it. So once you start treating it as just like a list of arguments, all of these are arguments, all of a sudden the syntax really clicks and it becomes easy to understand. Now you still have a little bit of extra syntax, like you have to understand what this is, you have to understand obviously formatting like this, you have to understand the thing that I showed before, which I still don't understand, this, which I was using for a path in a place, but it's kind of just shorthand for calling a function. Anyway, we're not really going to use the if, because really what we want to do is we would just want to print the compilation command. And the compilation command comes from format. Hold on, let me open the other thing again, this one, because I actually had this, which just takes a list and prints it. I don't think it's doing it. It's not being used anymore. Because now I'm doing print hash instead, which just maps and calls on a dictionary. But before I was using print list. I'm not sure what the syntax for that was supposed to be for calling this function. It should take a list, though. But let's see here. Actually, I can take these two macros. Well, one is a macro, one is a function. Doesn't matter, I can take them. And maybe separate them a little bit so I know that, you know, if I want to keep going with this, I put them in their own little helper function file and whatnot. Anyway, I'm going to want to print ln, print list, a list of, first off, the compiler. So can I just do compiler? As the first element of the list, then includes here, then sources here, then output here. Alright, so what did I do wrong? Readb compile is unbound. Et pourquoi? What do you mean elle est unbound? Elle n'est pas unbound. How is she unbound? Illegal function call. See, I remember when I defined the function in the other one. Oh no, I didn't do it with a double argument. I remember there was a double argument, and someone explained why, double parenthesis, I mean, when you define the function. It used to be like this. Was there something else? Maybe I'm remembering something that isn't defining a function, it's something else. Doesn't matter. Point is, I don't need the double parentheses here. I just need mod, success, and fail, which, by the way, are optional. Although, still, rather than optional, I still prefer to use key. Oh, it was when you define a variable as this and default value for it. That's where it was double parenthesis. Okay. I remember now. Still, what is your problem with this? The function called is the function mod is called with 4 arguments, but wants exactly 2. Nah, I'm doing something wrong because this is not a function. This is not supposed to be a function. Thank you. Thank you. Your question just showed me the error. I keep thinking it's def function, define function, but it's defun. Define function. Or define unction. Thank you. That was the issue. That's why it recognized this as a function, because it doesn't recognize this as a declaration. Anywho, the lambda expression has a missing or non-lambda list. The who? Alright, hold on. Not sure where this goes actually, so maybe that was a mistake. Repeated key in lambda list. Do I not need to use it twice? No, I only use it once. I only use the word key once. Okay, that compiles. Cool. And this goes here? Yes. Alright. So, that is cool. That is cool. Okay, and let's actually call this thing from the proper file, which is this one. We're going to create a file called redmod, and then we're going to take it and we're going to compile it. So we're going to do redbcompile with, notice how cool the LSP is. I don't have to deal with Clang. I am genuinely just going to rewrite everything in Lisp at this point. I don't have to define the success and failure functions if I don't want to, but I am going to do it. Though they not really going to do anything. And of course I failed. Unknown key argument, wait. Success and fail. Is that what I call them? Yeah. Genuinely such an elegant language. I'm proud of you, Lisp. I like you. Compiler is undefined. Right. Is it undefined? I mean, it's right here. But do you want me to do it like this? Do you want it like that? Compiler is undefined. The red compiler, the Chinese compiler. Nope. Red compiler is still undefined. Okay, so it's something else. It's not about the name. See, I've been burnt before by not understanding what the problem is, and it turns out that I'm using a word that's already in use by Lisp. Is this not how I access parameters? Def parameter. I'm doing it here. Def parameter. Is this parameter maybe not available? No, because I'm not even using it in a different file, but just in case, it's worth checking. No, same error, okay. That's good. It's not a scope error. So what is it exactly? Again, I'm defining the parameter compiler here. It's the same word. Hold on. I'm gonna do GGC instead of GCC just to see if the rest of it works. Illegal function call. Right. Alright, there we go. That is my print list, right? If I instead do print ln, puts them all on a single line. Bada bim, bada boom. And what is this? You should not be printing those. This is the success function, and this is the failed function. Do I need to declare them as lambdas? Probably. It's actually more like this. Right, I did this in the other one too, with the delimiter. Split uses a delimiter, which you define like this, and by default, it uses this. So, okay. Yeah, I think I need to use lambdas here. Alright, so it should be just lambda with this and this. And for fail, hold on, it's easier if I just do this, a lambda with no arguments and that function. Okay, I think that did it. Beginning compilation, there's my compile program. Compilation is finished, and then my functions are not being called right now, so whatever. Can I do that though? Can I do like how do you do a true statement that is always true? I'm not sure how to do that. I mean, I can always do this. No, I can't. Illegal function call. Is it just this actually? Still wrong. And there should be something like func call, right? Func call? Maybe not. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Alright, and if I do this, then bada bing bada boom, it failed. Oh, what a sad little state of affairs. Alright, there we have it. Okay, back to the compiler issue. Now that I think about it, I think it was just treating the word compiler as a function. Because I forgot to compiler. I forgot to include the word list there before, so yeah, there we go. Okay. Okay. All right. Now, for the object-oriented part, they were saying, and this part they did not bother putting in the in the helper in the very simple tutorials. You can define a class, you can get class off, you can call functions on that class, which is what I want to do right now, but they didn't show what those functions look like. Don't understand why you would do that. Like vehicle speed here is the function that you use to access speed on a vehicle. Bicycle mass is the function that, okay, I don't need to explain that, it's very obvious. But, well, no, actually not entirely. Because what I want, of course, is to now go through my modules libraries, right? So it's GCC includes first. So I want to go through the libraries and print out their include statement, which comes from header include. Then I want to go through the libraries and the sources and print out the sources and print out the library includes. And before all that, I want to go through the, forgot about this one, preproc. The preprocessor flags there. Which, should I call it preprocessor flags or just flags? Probably just flags. So yeah, it just is flags. Is it a learning project or do I plan on using it on my I plan on using it on libraries that are separate from my OS, but actually with a fallback so I can still use them in my OS without requiring Lisp for the build process. And you know, if I like it, yes, also in the West, and I'm liking it, so yes. At some point or another, there's gonna be a whole Lisp interpreter saga. Spoiler alert. Anyway, preproc. Just gonna get rid of that. There were actually like flags at the beginning and at the end, so I can maybe do that. Can you compile Common Lisp to native? From what I read, yes, but I don't know. I literally I was looking up why the word compile is taken up in Lisp earlier, and because it's similar, something about that came up, and people weren't recommending it. But I think you can. And if you can't, I do have a compiler. So I don't know if you can, but I can. Well, I will be able to. Anyway, yes, I want to iterate over the flags of the compiler and just print them out. I want to iterate over the all the other stuff, and I don't know how to do that. Also, another thing that I saw is def type. What's that compared to class? It's considered completely separate from a type. From a class, I mean. Defining new types. With a member apple, orange, and pear. Alright, so let me see. Do I want to use that instead? Fruit. Now let us define a new data type. Data type should be an array with at most 10 elements. Why are you doing that? What do you mean? So def type to define enum types is what they're doing here, which is the question that I had before. Okay, so I think I want classes for the thing that I'm doing, not types. But then I want you to tell me about it's probably in the type system itself. I don't understand why searching for classes in the Common Lisp cookbook didn't give me classes, because they use DuckDuckGo, that's the reason. Lisp cookbook. I can actually just do cite classes. Open with system. Oh my fuck. What a mess. There you go. The Common Lisp object system. Alright. Accessor. Can you show me what these accessors look like? Oh, now I get it. Now I get it. I am literally defining that name and then an instance of person is going to print out this variable. Well, that wasn't very clear. That's also not very nice. And okay, I understand. I get it. That's ugly as hell. I don't like this. The accessor is the name of the property, red mod, sources, libraries, name, all that. Okay. So I want to do red mod flags and then the mod. What's that going to give me? An error. Yeah. Preproc. There's still some preproc references here. Or here, actually. Yeah. It's flags now. Okay. And it gives me nil. Because it is actually empty. Yeah, I didn't notice. Whereas now it gives me, yeah, a list of tests. Okay, cool. The thing is, the flags themselves have to be a little bit more complex. No, actually, you know what? I don't want to do something too complicated with the flag system. I want you to be able to define the flag like that. Whereas in the old build system, I was defining like what the prefix should be based on the type of flag that you're setting. I don't want to complicate it too much. So it's literally just going to be this. All right, there we have it. Although it is doing parentheses here, which I don't want. I think that is that a print error? Is that something I need to handle? I don't know. I don't know how that works. I think, yeah, I'll need to do some concatenations and whatnot. But, at least that tells me how to do this. Now, that's the thing. All right, to compile, we're going to first define what compiler we want, then the flags. Then we're going to do the includes. And this part is going to be interesting because we're going to do the red mod 2 parts, actually. Also a list. 2 parts. No, not 2 parts. This is not the one that needs 2 parts. That's later. That's a spoiler. We're going to do red mod libraries mod. But I want you to access only the libraries includes this part, which of course I can also give it its own accessor. Lib include so lib include of this thing, but I think I'm gonna need to iterate. I think I'm gonna need to like map over it. Well, let me see. Yeah, probably. There is no applicable method for the generic function lib include. Yes, okay. So what I want to do is I want to iterate over the results of this, which is going to be a list, I believe. There's just one include, to be fair, but it should be a list. We're going to do raylib, even though we don't actually have raylib. And for raylib, we actually don't need to define this, but we do need to define a subpath, which is src. Right, so okay. Yes, we have a list of 2 class types, and we want to iterate over that, and then we're going to need to do that with map, which I used, so I should have it here, right? Well, I used reduce. But I do believe it is map car. The name of the function is map car. This is the wrong project. This is it. Okay, so here I want to get the libraries and I want to map car over the function called lib include using the function called libinclude over this list. There we have it. There we have it. There we have it. I also need to concatenate /i to that. But I can't really define what libinclude looks like, which I don't love. So do I have to do it twice? Or do I just have to define a defun lib to include lib concatenate /i and lib. So I use this. No, lib include lib. No. Let me see if I did it wrong. Not a or cons symbol. Oh, obviously I did it wrong. Like, let me see what I did wrong. Value of I in concatenate is I and not a. Okay, so that's not how you do concatenation. Concatenate. Strings. Concatenating strings. Concatenate. This is a generic sequence function. You have to provide the result type as the first argument. Thank you. No, I think the symbol that I want to use is this one. There we go. All right, there we have it. There we have it. There we have it. Holy shit, look at that. Added it right away. Isn't that so cool? And of course, lib to include is actually going to be a function of the lib class. Well, it's not going to be a function of the lib class. It's just going to work for this. And then for the source, we don't need to do the same thing. For the sources, though, we do need to do another thing. Which is, in order to print the sources that we want to compile, we want to get the sources from the program. Which means I also want a list of redmod sources for mod. And that is going to give me test.c. And then besides that, I also want you to give me this thing. But instead of lib to include, it's lib to source. A new function that I'm going to create for it. Lib to source. All right. Can you tell how much I'm enjoying Lisp? It's actually such a great language. Which, no, it doesn't actually need to do that. I can do lib, the name of the accessor for that. I'm going to call it lib source. Lib source, not lib to source. Okay, there's a lot of parentheses going on here, which we don't want. But red mod name mod. That's the last thing missing. Great. Hello, best creeper. All right. This is where it gets interesting. Okay, so there's a thing missing, which is the type. And the type has a init argument of type. And its type is going to be an enum, but for now we're okay with a string. And then the accessor is going to be called redmod type. Slight feeling you're having issues. No, it's actually going great. Everything's going great. Look at this entire build system. 100 lines of code. Lisp is great. No complaints. No blockers on my side. Although this thing I do kind of need to figure out how to do, which is to process the name, I need to get the type and the name, right? Because the name tells me the name of the executable, which is play in this case, but the type is going to determine the extension of that executable. So right now this is going to be easy, because I can just do redmod name type, and we don't have one. Forgot about that. Which again, I want to do a proper enum, and I'll figure that out in a minute. But right now, the type of this is just gonna be elf, or .elf even. Though I still did it wrong. Variable type is unbound. Pourquoi? Oh, because it's redmod type mod. Okay. So we have everything we need, technically, to compile mon program. We have the compiler that we're going to use. We have compilation flags. We have includes. We have sources. We have an executable. But we're not doing it right yet, because all of this gets put into a list. I need to flatten that list. It's actually like several lists. It's one list which contains this string, then this list here, then this list with two strings inside of it, then this list with this list and this list containing all of this, then this string, and this string, which my formatter is separating into separate blanking on the word, which my compiler is separating into separate I'm still blanking on the damn word. It's just putting spaces. It's putting spaces here, which I'm not explicitly adding, but I kind of wanted to do that. But then I wanted to compile the lists inside. Okay, so first off, there's no need for this to be a double list, right? There's absolutely no need for that, but I can kind of do that. And the rest is fine. For that matter, can I concatenate these two strings? Yes. 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 Good. 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 Now finally, if instead of a print ln for the list, like I know that this is a list, this is a list, this is a list, this is a list, this is already a concatenated string, and this is obviously a string because it's hard-coded. Can you tell how much more elegant this is? Because you can see the shape of the result directly in the syntax of the program. Can you tell how much I like Lisp, by the way? Can you tell how much I'm enjoying Lisp? List counter 42. Well, it's the list processor. What do you expect? I am becoming Lisp pilled. But also, this is literally what my other build system was doing. Alright? Literally, look at this shit. Alright? Except, look at how much more difficult it is to do this with a language that isn't prepared for it. To be fair, that's the main reason you can do this in any language that can process lists, any functional language. But, yeah. Bash with more parentheses. So better. Imagine if Bash allowed you to do this shit. Imagine if instead of Bash you wrote Lisp. And guess who has control over a completely from scratch terminal that they can do whatever they want with? It's not him. Though I think he's much happier that way. Now, I actually considered, like, what if I just script using Lisp in my terminal? Because like when I understood again, when it clicked to me that when it finally clocked to me that when I'm doing this, all of these, this whole thing, this whole thing, all of those are just arguments to a function. All of a sudden I was like, wait, this is actually so good. Hello, Stony. I've actually slept pretty well, thank you. No, it's just the lighting here, it's a little dark today. And also my hair is a mess. I'm just becoming Lisp pilled, so it's a whole mental transformation. And like, how do you put it? One of those Cthulhu characters that is learning too much information for their own good. I'm one of those. I'm about to become a fucking Elden Ring cutscene mini-boss. I can read that as well as CMake. Is this hard to read? Do we find this hard to read? I find it understandable. But again, I wrote the damn thing. But again, this is my third time writing Lisp. The second time on stream. Do you really need to know? Because again, that's the cool thing about this, is that I don't feel like you do need to know Lisp to understand the code, although you do need it. For example, like you don't know what mapcar is. At the very least, you need to understand functional programming to understand what mapcar is doing. Now you need to understand what Lisp does with this. This is just like map this list using this function. Also, I indented this a little bit weird, just to say like these are both doing the same thing, but they're different elements. That's also probably why this looks out of place, because these are two arguments, technically. These are two arguments. But this is kind of just like the way that I structure the thing. Like, maybe this is more readable, I don't know. But I find that it's cool that you can tell somewhat the structure of the compilation command by doing, okay, the compiler first, then flags, then, okay, this gets a little bit complicated, library to include, then sources, then library sources, then output, then the actual output, then the end of the list. So that should actually probably be like this. Find it a little bit better. To me, it makes it pretty cool that that is, that seems readable to me. That seems pretty readable to me. Now, about you guys. This is the part I kind of want to avoid, because it will make it a lot less readable, is the concatenate. To need to put concatenate at the beginning of everything. I just want to see if it works. No. Doesn't work. I see. Yeah, this is not a list. No, this is a list, yes, but okay. I just want to do like common lisp list to string. Do I reduce? Lib to include is a function. It's kind of just a higher order function, so I'm using it as an argument to map car here. Lib to include is, hold on, this function here. It's just another concatenation, really. It just appends I to the beginning of the name of the library. Whereas lib source just gives you the source of the .a of the library. Okay, so format is what I want. That is ugly. Can I not just do format nil? And then I still don't understand what these mean, by the way. Like, I still haven't gotten used to reading this kind of syntax, but it does what I want it to do. Yeah. Which it essentially takes, this used to be a list. Now it flattened it into a single element. It's gonna do the same, but I don't want to do that for all of these. So I have this list. All right, I have this list. Instead of println, I'm going to do another map using a function that I'm going to call flatten arguments. And this is going to take a list and it is going to flatten it. Well, it's going to take a list, which is each of the elements of this list. So this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. I hope you can process these two. No. The variable format is unbound. Oh, whoops. Not enough parentheses for Lisp's liking. The value GCC is not of type list. Look! I wanted to flatten lists into strings, but this and this are already strings. So that is a problem. But I do remember we talked about this fucking language has generics. Come on, man. This language has generics. Do we realize how insane it is that a language from like 1954, 58, something like that, has generics? I don't know if it always had generics, but a language from 1960? Was it in 1958? 1958. Oh, began developing in 1958. A language from 1958 has generics, although that is. Why is my terminal shaking, by the way? I opened it by accident. A language from 1960, even though Common Lisp is an evolution of that one, has generics. How crazy is that? C does have generics, but they were added in maybe not even C11, maybe a newer version. Generic in C comes from C11. C11. Okay. Interesting. Not gonna lie. I use C99, which is essentially just C11, but slightly worse. So, yeah, maybe I should. All right. I'm going to figure out the syntax for the generic real quick while an ad runs. I'm actually enjoying Lyft so much I'm not even taking ad breaks. Sorry about that, but I'm trying to do things that aren't super interesting during the ads. Okay, so essentially I'm going to define a generic using a name and then an argument, but I'm not going to define its functionality, of course. Instead of going to do def method of a description where it takes an object of type integer, so I specify the type here, and then here I do this. MSVC doesn't support it yet. They don't really focus on C standard support, instead focusing on C++ standard support. Damn it. Well, standard C++ has templates. That's kind of ugly. C++ is kind of ugly. I'm surprised that C11 is not supported by MSVC. Although, to be fair, my code is meant to be compiled with GCC. I even use some built-in GCC functions. So if I wanted to move to C11, I don't think I would have much of an issue with that. I could. I don't think I'd have much of an issue doing that. That's kind of shitty of them. But the only time I've felt the need to use generic in C is when I do printing. I would love to do a printing method like you can do here, where you can just put arguments one right after the other without this. But like the way that you can do print ln, my macro for it, which just takes the list, flattens it, and prints every argument of it. So much more elegant. So much better than, using these arguments. And it's convenient that I can do it in a kind of generic way because it has printing for generics, where C doesn't have that. So I have to specify the type in C. I have to do this. Here, I don't have to do that at all. I don't have to specify the type. It already knows. So I can afford to do things like print list, or print ln, which I can just do like print ln hello 1 2 3, and that will print, though it's still an error, like that. Which is how I want to do a logging system. Are you studying a new language from Wikipedia and some random websites? It helps that I already have built this build system before, but also I already know what I have to do. Again, what I'm doing really is just creating a command to compile a project, right? I'm not even running it, mind you. That's a whole other thing. I'm not even... I just closed the chat. Alright, all your messages are gone. RIP. Anyway, I'm not even using Wikipedia for this. I'm just using the common... Oh no, the messages are there. Okay. Just took a million years to load. I'm I'm just using the common Lisp, what is this called? Like quick start and the cookbook. So just reference. Once you already know programming concepts, you don't really need to understand those. You just need to understand, how do I do them in this language? What is the syntax? Granted, I already know a bit of functional programming, which allows me to do things like these, which are, you wouldn't really know how to do this in C by itself, for example, because it is not functional. Whereas if you know how to do functional programming, you know how map works. So those are other concepts that I already know. But yeah, you just learn the concepts, not the syntax. And then once you know enough concepts, learning a new language is just about going to their basic examples or cookbook or spec or whatever and being like, how do I do this thing, this concept that I already know how to do? What is the syntax for doing it here? Where's the logic you already know? Granted, when you're working with a completely new language, then maybe turns out that there's actually a better way of doing it. Maybe there's some syntactic sugar specifically for the thing that you're trying to do. You learn that by just doing more, reading more documentation, reading more examples and whatnot. But yeah, that is the basics of it. All right, back to, now the ad ended a while ago. Def method. Okay, def method. So this is flatten args for when the type is a list. We flatten it like that. Whereas flatten args for when the type is a string is just going to be about printing the string, which I'm still going to call LST, it doesn't matter. And I'm doing this backwards kind of, but I have to do def generic flatten args with a LST object. And what if I don't want to give it a description? Do I need one? Okay. So I did something wrong. While evaluating the form starting at line 79. By the way, I don't know what happened, but like the first time that I wrote Lisp, this shit was just not there. This was this is unreadable. This is a stack trace. Not really supposed to understand the error from that. But this was either unhelpful or not there at all. All of a sudden it was like, it appeared. Like halfway through the first stream I did on Lisp. It was like, oh, suddenly the error messages make sense. I don't know if I just like learned a new language, like it just unlocked something in my brain that made me able to read SBCL errors or something, but I don't know. Attempt to add method, standard method, sabbatical PCL, system class common Lisp T. Okay, so this is not readable. Fuck's sake. To the generic function. Okay, so I tried to add this one of these methods, starting on line 79, so this one, this method. But the method has more required arguments than the generic function, so okay. Double parentheses. See, for Rust, I would struggle a lot more because Rust does a lot of handles memory management for you, and I will have to learn how it does that. Look at that. Wait, why are they all strings? Oh my god. Do I want to add another map car to concatenate? I'm going to call it conc. See, do I really need to do this function? Is there an easier way for me to do this? I don't know. list of strings concatenate. Wait, no. I can just call this again. Or not. Wait, hold on. I need to get rid of this. And print it one more time. He's licking his leg. He is licking his leg. Come on. He's fine. I can cover him up if you want. There we go. Much better. Why do I use Ubuntu? Because I couldn't care less about which distro I use. That's the... Alright, now he's licking his front leg. So, should be good. I'm still seeing something weird here. Can I do print list? And get rid of one of these? GCC d test I test boom boom boom. Okay. So what if I do println? Okay. Okay. I'm starting to understand what this incomprehensible jargon means, by the way. Starting to understand it. But there we have our compilation command. Isn't that so cool, so convenient? Now, you know what's even more convenient is the fact that I can take this entire thing. This entire thing. Which just uses the compiler parameter. Why are you crying? You good? Maybe don't do something that hurts? Consider that? Anyway, this whole thing is producing a list of compile arguments. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to put in a function called make command, which takes a mod as an argument and does this thing. So here I'm going to do a print list of make command of mod. Now this does the same thing. But now, if I want to produce a compile commands.json file, it's laughably easy to do with this shit. Because I just take each of these lines and I put them in a slightly formatted JSON, which results in something like this. It would be that easy to make a compile commands JSON file. It wasn't particularly hard on C either, because what I did is I took the compile command that I used to actually run and perform the compilation, and I just split it when I find a space, and I put each of those in a single line, and then I write these parts kind of manually, which I'm still gonna have to do. So for this part, these parts are arguments. It really is that easy. But notice how natural it is here. Because the compilation program is already a list, I can just do whatever I want with that list. That dog should learn how to code by now. Have you seen what he does all day? That's all he does all day. He sleeps on this bed, he sleeps on the other bed, he sleeps in his bed. We haven't gotten yet to the point where he tries to sleep in like a dark corner of the house that's like 2 degrees colder than the rest. That hasn't happened yet, but probably gonna happen soon. Which means I'm gonna be walking around and all of a sudden I'm gonna run into a dog laying there on the floor. But yeah, anything but learning how to code. Anything but learning a skill. Anything but getting a job. Jester, your brand of dog are rat hunters. How you doing? How you doing? He's wagging his tail. You guys are rat hunters, alright? You used to hunt rats. What are you doing? To be fair, there's no rats in this house. So, I think he's done a good job. But I don't know. He's not getting paid for it. Okay, it would be a bit difficult for me right now to figure out how to actually run the command, right? So execute this thing. Because like once I have the make command, this thing is gonna make the command and print it, but eventually it's gonna run it. Another function called see how simple this is gonna be. See how simple this is gonna be. I'm just creating the stub to be fair. Compile commands is just going to, again, gonna do the exact same thing. Print list, make command mod. But eventually I'll replace print list with like generate JSON. And is there anything else? Oh yes. Kind of part that I'm most interested in. Although this actually won't use the make command. This will use the redb fallback or simple make. Hold on. In my documents file, in my documents where I have my stream schedule and tasks and whatnot. Okay. I decided that again, this build system at least doesn't require my own programming language, and then on top of that also compilation. It's an interpreted language. So it just requires the source files and a common Lisp interpreter. But even if you don't have that, I want to have a fallback. So I'm going to create a file called simplemake. And that part I might be able to do today. Essentially, the redb fallback function is going to create that simplemake file for you, which is just going to be a list of sources to compile that then gets put in a file, and you can iterate over that file using a makefile or using even a bash script and adding the libraries and dependencies yourself. This is meant for like library code, to be fair. Not necessarily for programs, but really for anything. The point is, take some source files and compile them into a library. Because, for example, this is the regex library that I built yesterday. So build.c is part of the build system. That is not meant to be compiled. So the build system itself actually ignores it by default. Okay, to be fair, yeah, doesn't matter. It just includes this file. Regex.c is the actual implementation of the regular expression stuff. And then tester.c just tests the library with a little program to see if it works. But it doesn't compile as a library yet. But yeah, actually it can compile as a library, I believe, if I just don't pass this in. If I'm not mistaken, let me try. See how I have to recompile the build system and then do that? And yes, it compiles as a library. Which is essentially does by compiling this file into a .o file and then joining all the .o file, which is just this one, into a .a file. Since compiling a library is that easy and I control the structure of the libraries, then I just want this fallback system to simply create a list of all the files that are meant to be compiled based on this more complex build system. And then inside of my OS, I can just iterate through that list with an existing makefile that links with all the libraries that it knows to link with. Actually, it doesn't need to link with any libraries because it compiles libraries only. But yeah, the point is to create a fallback to just be like, compile these files. And really, all we need to do there is one section of this, which is red mod sources mod. Literally just that. And instead of redb compile, I do redb fallback. Nope, wrong project. And there we go. It just produces a list of files that are meant to be compiled. In this case, the only one that's here. Whereas a more complex system can be like compile the library and then link the library with this other tester.c file in order to create an executable that you can use to test the library. Don't need to do all that. Alright, so this is really all we need. Pretty cool. And redb fallback should be able to write a file. If I'm not mistaken, there's actually an IO section in here which tells me how to write a file. So here's where they use the p thing. And with open file stream merge path names, that, and that is the function. All right, so let me try this. Close that, that, and that. And the name of my file is going to be simple make. See, I tried this already once, and okay, no. Here's how we open a file, data.txt, in your home directory for writing. Oh, so that's not how you're writing to it. Okay, never mind, I did that wrong. I did that wrong. This is an argument to you guys. Then, what I do is format stream. Wait, so hold on. This closes here, this closes here, the last one closes here. Okay, so no. There. Alright, so with open file, I open this whole file from the home directory. I don't know about that. I don't think I need to merge path names. I think I'm okay with just doing this. I guess we'll see. And we're going to format into stream and here I'm going to copy from print list this whole format for my list. There is no such file or directory. Okay, so it's true that I don't need to merge path names, so maybe I can skip that part at the very least. Yes, but it wants me to have a file that already exists. So I love that in the I/O section they give me information on format, but not on file I/O. So lisp book with open file, because of course I need a creating if necessary. I read that in the opens the file, creating it if necessary. No, the fuck it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Wait, with open file opens the file, creating it if necessary. Binds standard output, executes its body, closes the file, and restores the standard output to its former value. Notice how convenient that is. But it really... Oh, if exists, supersede. What does supersede mean? I don't know what that means, but I need it here. No. Oh, it's part of the stream thing. No, so I'm not understanding this. With open file, I'm creating it, calling it stream. This is the name of the file, direction output. I mean, according to the documentation, it says that creates the file if necessary, but then it's just complaining that the file does not exist. Never mind. We have that easily a fallback to this whole build system with just a not even a script, just a list of files that you can then use. Which means I technically have everything I need in order to use this build system in my libraries now. It won't actually be able to build the libraries, but it will be able to build the fallback version. So when I want to integrate them into the OS, I can use this and slowly move from the old build system to the new one. Which again reduces the number of use cases of my programming language from 1 to 0. However, quick reminder that we have now switched to a fully French programming language. We now have inclure, we now have vide principal instead of main. We have per instead of per. Should I maybe have used a language that I actually know how to speak or pronounce? Whose pronunciation I don't find absolutely impossible? Doesn't matter. We have si and autre. And we have ent, which is integer, but in French. So, yeah, maybe my programming language is giving up on being a programming language because there's no more uses for it anymore. How sad. Now I'm probably gonna need the compiler for sure. The programming language. I'm probably gonna move it closer to C so I can use it as a improve C in specific cases. Like maybe even as a superseding C. Because there are a few places, like even in the regex code yesterday, where I would love to have lambdas, for example. Lambdas mostly the main reason. There's regex find many, and then there's which uses a function pointer for any time it finds a result, and then there's regex find one, which uses find many internally with a hard-coded handler with a hard-coded result, which is very ugly. It would be so much better to have a closure. To be fair, that's a closure, not a lambda. So I would still need to have this hack with my programming language, but if I add closures, wouldn't that be great? And also, yeah, C is okay, but it's time for the new one. Not C++, not D, because those are already taken. Fuck whoever took D, by the way. C+. Cred. It's actually called Cred. Alright, so new build system can do this. Can make files do that? Can make files create their own replacement? Can make files make their own replacement that is going to make them obsolete? It's not really going to make them obsolete, but can they do that? Probably not. Can make files make their own compile commands.json files? Probably not. Okay, mostly done with what I wanted to do. Again, I have to say this language is just top notch. However, before I go, there is one more thing I want to do. To say that the output of my program was a library, I hard-coded here the fact that the type is .elf. Oh, so it's not a library, it's an executable. It compiles a .elf. I wouldn't want to do that. I would want to use a proper enum. And I saw them do that with types. In the type system, we can use member to define enums. Alright, so def type fruit, no arguments, member, and then the names. And how do I use them? Alright, so there's going to be 3 types. Def type, output type, no arguments, and then member. This kind of turns it into a list if I'm not mistaken. Member, and then it's going to be lib, it's going to be bin, and it's going to be red. Okay, so now the type is no longer going to be a string. Whoops, this is the type. It's now going to be an output tpay. And that means accessing the red mod type requires me to create an extra function for defun output type name. I have to say, one thing I'm being kind of inconsistent about today is on lower, what are these called? Hyphens and underscores. Because C doesn't usually allow hyphens, so I usually use underscores, but since this one does, sometimes I use one, sometimes I use the other. I need to be a little bit better with that. Alright, can you show us what to do with them? We can use member to define enums, but then I wanna, based on the value of an enum, I wanna print a different output type. When I looked this up, somebody was talking about it, so. Where in C you might write this. In Lisp you might write this, but I don't like that. If you need an enumerated type, then you can define one with def type. That's what I'm doing. They literally took it from the thing. Then you can use the type fruit in declare, type, EP, and type case, and so on, and you can write generic functions that specialize on that type. Apparently not. By using keyword, you avoid to worry which package your symbols are in. Generic functions can only specialize on classes, not arbitrary types, but you can write methods for symbols. That's not. That's just people arguing there. Enums are redundant for Lisp. No, the fuck they're not. The main thing about enums is they allow me to define values with a hard-coded name, which means if I mistype it, I don't have my program silently fail or even just fail without knowing why. I know exactly why it failed. It tells me, hey, this name is not real. And that's it, I can fix it. But people love to respond in Stack Overflow questions are like, how do I do this? Well, the thing is, you don't technically do it like this because you don't have the answer to the question, you don't answer the question. It's that simple. This is why your website is dying. This is very easy to do in CL. Look at this shit. It's very easy to do. 50 lines of code. Fuck's sake. Alright, let me see again with the enums part. Here. Okay, so def type can be used as a new type specifier, and then this. But I wanna iterate over based on the value that it has. Alright, first off, it doesn't really matter. Just real quick, wanna see if this works the way that I think it does. I mean, it feels like this is that, doesn't it? I don't know. This is no longer redmod type, it is now output type name. Which does nothing but doesn't matter. I feel like that shouldn't have compiled. Because the type name is that, whereas I wanted it to be bin for a binary. Alright, there we have it. That compiles. So if I just make it something that doesn't exist, it still compiles. Well, that kind of unfixes my problem. Although I'm pretty sure it's because I'm not using it anywhere. Yeah. So redmod type. So get the type. And then B is not of type sequence. Alright. So we're off to a good start, but again, I still need to get the name based on the type, and I don't know how to do that. Let me see. Common Lisp def type enum to string. Missing Lisp. Show results with Lisp. Why do you put AI in your fucking search engine if it can't even understand that it got rid of the most important part of the question? Alright, surprisingly, for a language that gets advertised as like, you can do whatever you want, if it doesn't have a feature that you want, you can just use a macro to create it. People are surprisingly reluctant to do things the way that I'm trying to do them. People are just like, you should not be doing this. And I really don't get why. Because this guy says you can do it like this. but better use keywords. Okay, what are keywords then? Alright, this feels like a whole thing. Alright, so I'm gonna leave it. It is after midnight already. I'll figure that out. I'm not sure what's going on anymore. So, that is enough Lisp for today. Alright, so Friday, I'm going to go back to the regular expressions. I like the way that I've been building them. Hasn't been particularly difficult. Didn't need any math. And it actually felt relatively easy to do. I've implemented these things in regular expressions. Though I still need to implement capture groups. And I need to implement like character sets. So like the brackets. But honestly, those should be easy to implement with the current kind of syntax that I'm using. Oh, not syntax, but like the logic that I'm using to do these regular expressions. So, yeah, happy with the way that regular expressions are going. And I'm using it to do a auto summarizer for the operating system's documentation. So, once I have the very basic features that I need in order to parse, let me see. In order to parse something like this, no, I'm missing a comma here. Okay. Once I have the basic features to be able to parse something like this, then I'm going to integrate it into the operating system, and this is where the new build system will come in, specifically the simple make thing. Because again, it'll just have regex.c in the compiler, and it'll understand that. Okay, I just need to compile this to make this library without needing to work with, well, the operating system is going to use makefiles, but the library itself doesn't need to use makefiles. So the build system will have a fallback. All right, that's for Friday. I'm going to continue working on the build system because there's still a lot of features that are missing, a lot of default configuration especially. And I really want to figure out those enums. But that is it for today. Thank you so much, everybody. I'll see you Friday.